My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm from Dallas, Texas. Last night I was at a town hall meeting with Representative Julie Johnson, Democratic representative from House District 115 in Texas, and she gave a town hall meeting in Farmers Branch. So I drove to listen to her to find out what her perspective was on this most recent legislative session that we had in the state of Texas. One of the things Ms. Johnson was very, very thrilled about was the funding that is now going forward for pre-kindergarten classes. And the rationale behind that is that children from low-income families need to learn how to read.
We're providing for a full-day pre-K program for low-income students now.
Often they don't have family structures to support them. There may be issues of poverty. They don't have a parent with them all the time. And as Ms. Johnson said, children who don't learn how to read proficient by the third grade, in her words, it's over. It's over.
It is very clear that if you are not reading proficient by third grade, it is over.
We need to teach our children to read proficiently by the third grade. And she went one step further and she said the state has a compelling state interest to ensure that the students entrusted to its educational care are reading proficient by third grade.
We have a compelling state interest to make sure every child in our educational care is reading proficient by the age of third grade.
I appreciated the fact that she talked about a state's compelling interest, the compelling interest of the state to ensure that children know how to read. Now, Ms. Johnson was saying that one of the best ways to address this issue was to have pre-kindergarten classes that you would teach these children, prepare them for reading or start teaching them reading.
The number one way to do that is to start with pre-K.
There is one thing that Ms. Johnson and that most legislators and that most family court judges and most divorce attorneys, perhaps even the governor himself, many people in society neglect to acknowledge, mention, or factor into the equation. And that is the effect of divorce on a child's education. So after I heard Ms. Johnson last night, I got to talk with her a little bit afterwards, and graciously she said, come and see me, we'll talk about this more. So I look forward, Julie, to meeting with you and to talking about this issue more with you in the future. But what I did a little bit of research, and I found this article from the Marriage and Religion Research Institute. It's called The Effects of Divorce on Children's Education. And basically, to start off, the first sentence says, divorce and separation correlate positively with diminished school achievement and performance. In other words, children from divorced families do worse in school. That's the bottom line. If a child comes from a divorced family, by and large, that child would do worse than the counterparts that he or she is with that come from intact families. Daniel Potter of the University of Virginia found that elementary school children who experience divorce immediately begin performing worse academically than their peers from intact families, and that this gap persists through elementary school. Children exposed to unilateral divorce, and unilateral divorce is when one person forces divorce on the other person, forces divorce on the family, when he or she claims irreconcilable differences, and the judge automatically says, okay, well, if you claim irreconcilable differences, you're going to get the divorce, even though your husband or your wife may not want it. That is unilateral divorce. It's forced divorce. It's divorce on demand, divorce without cause, divorce that I can inflict upon somebody, and I can hurt not just my spouse, but my children. And they talk about the issue of unilateral divorce. Children exposed to unilateral divorce are less educated by adulthood. They are less educated by adulthood. They have lower educational aspirations, lower test scores during the process of their parents' marital disruption. Children of divorced parents are more likely also to be held back a grade. When you get a divorce, it affects your children. None of this nonsense that children are resilient, children will be happy if their parents are happy. When you get a divorce, you impact your children. And it even goes further in this article later on to say, grandparents, when you get a divorce, it affects your grandchildren. You need to take this to heart. Children of divorced parents are more likely to be held back a grade and also have lower GPAs. High school students who come from intact families score 11% higher in their GPAs than their peers from divorced families. If you look at children from intact families, married families, they have the highest combined English and math GPAs. Children from divorced mothers Mothers who remained divorced did worse over time on the Peabody Individual Achievement Reading Recognition Test, which gauge a child's ability to recognize and pronounce words, than children who came from intact family. Family structure has an impact on a child's education. If the state of Texas has a compelling state interest to ensure that children are reading proficient by 3rd grade, they sure have a compelling interest to try to reduce divorce, to try to keep families intact, to quit granting unilateral divorce simply because one person says, well, I'm not happy right now. You may not be happy right now, but you are destroying your family, your children, in the process. By age 13, there is an average of half a year in reading ability between children of divorced parents and children from intact families. Another test here, the Common Admissions Test, it's a math and verbal percentile, scores children from married, always intact families in the 58th percentile. Children in married step families or divorced single-parent families score in the 48th percentile. 10 percentile difference just due to family structure. There was another study done out of Kent University, the Impact of Divorce Project. It used a national sample of 699 elementary students. Children from divorced families performed worse in spelling, in reading, and in math, and repeated a grade more frequently than children in intact 2-parent families. The project's findings led researchers to conclude that children and young adolescents suffered long-term negative effects following divorce. Some people like to think that divorce is just a minor bump and the children are resilient, children will get over it, and they say it's long-term effects following divorce. Teenagers who experience parental divorce score lower than their counterparts from intact families on math, science, and history tests. So to those people who say, divorce is just a private matter, it's just a matter between 2 adults, it's just a matter of giving one adult his selfish way or her selfish way, you are lying to yourselves. Divorce impacts children. And to the state of Texas that pretends, well, we really can't do anything about it if 2 people want to divorce, if one person wants to force divorce on the family, we have to always back up that other person. You are also destroying children. If you have a compelling state interest to ensure that children read proficiently by the 3rd grade, or else it's over, you have a compelling state interest to stop the divorce epidemic in the state of Texas, to repeal unilateral no-fault divorce, to make divorce harder, to give encouragement to families to stay together, because divorce has long-term impacts on children and has long-term impacts on our society. Thank you.